Hold up, before you get to watching this video, let me talk to you for a second. Hit that bell down below and subscribe to the Fitz Take Podcast YouTube channel so you'll know when every episode is dropping or if something has been posted on this page. Also, be sure to follow me and Elijah on our social media platforms. They will be linked down in the description. Now back to the episode. The topic of the Saints versus the Eagles that happened there on Sunday. Coming into the contest, the Saints were averaging well over 40 points a game after their output against the Panthers and then against the Cowboys there in week 2. But it's the Philadelphia Eagles that come into the Caesars Superdome and they stifle the Saints offense and they beat them 15-12 to be able to pick up a very huge victory. Coming into that contest, Philly, I think, was giving up like 6 yards per rush, and they held Alvin Kamara well under that average. So Elijah, I know you got a chance to look at a little bit of the game. So what were your thoughts on what happened?
The Saints came to play. Surprisingly, Derek Carr couldn't get going. I know I gave that man torture before the season. I know I said some things about him before the season, but he just couldn't get some things going. I think like in the third quarter at one point he had like 84 yards passing. And I think for Philadelphia from last week when they lost to Atlanta, everybody was just saying that, the defense, it was the defense, it was the defense. And, they came up and showed out in New Orleans today. I mean, the defensive line looked really good, led by Jalen Carter, who took away some of those running lanes and holes that Alvin Kamara was used to getting in the first 2 weeks. And then on the back end, I think the defense played very, very well. I know they gave up a touchdown to Chris Olave in the fourth. But other than that, Philadelphia played very, very well. Not saying that New Orleans didn't play well either, but I feel like, these are right so far in the early season, these are 2 of our top teams that's in the NFC. And I think them to competing like that, this won't be the last time, I should say. This won't be the last time these 2 teams compete against one another, especially I think that they can see each other in the postseason. But I think Philadelphia pulled away at the end for the simple fact they were getting downfield during the game, and the Saints had some key stops. But when it was the money time in that fourth quarter for the Saints to actually get that key stop, it didn't work. Philadelphia gets down the field with Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley finished the game, getting 2 touchdowns on the day, and that eventually sealed the deal. So it was a good game between 2 teams who I think they're pretty physical up front.
Yeah, it was a lot of things that happened in this game. For somebody that's just looking at the box score, they could say, well, I didn't need to watch this game until the fourth quarter. But there were a lot of storylines that happened early on in the game that kind of set the tone for the way this game would finish up. The first one was Eric McCoy, the starting center for the Saints, getting hurt, I think, on the opening drive, and he was out for the rest of the game. No matter how you want to put it, the offensive line doesn't get a whole lot of praise because their job is just to keep the quarterback protected, opening holes and things like that. But when you have to put somebody else different into the lineup, especially at the center position, that changes the entire dynamic. And you talked about how Jalen Carter had an extremely good game against the Saints. He was able to eat mainly because he was lined up over the backup center. So when you look at that situation, that stifled them from being able to run the football well. They only had 89 yards on the ground. Taysom Hill did not play. Apparently, I think I saw somewhere that it said he had a bruised lung. So he did not play today. Him not being in the run game changed a lot of the tempo of things because, Derek Carr is not a running quarterback. So, the defensive line, they don't have to worry about a zone read. They don't have to worry about him pulling it on the backside. When Taysom is in, they have to account for that. So you eliminate that type of thing in there, and he's not, your offense is not the exact same. The other thing that happened early on was that Carl Granderson, the defensive end for the Saints, was eating, bro. At one point, I think he had 5 tackles, 1.5 sacks. And him and Alontae Taylor combined for a half sack. So, and I said at this point, Alontae is just a defensive end more than he is a DB right now because he getting all these sacks and stuff. But he was making a huge difference in the game because of the way he was able to disrupt things. He got his sack where he stripped Jalen Hurts and was able to get the fumble recovery. But ultimately, I think that the Saints offense was just not really neither offense, but I'm specifically talking about the Saints. The Saints offense was not able to capitalize on any of the turnovers that they got. They only scored 3 points there in the first quarter. The only touchdown that they scored came all the way there in the fourth quarter, I think with about 4 or 5 minutes left to go in the game. Um, when your defense gets you the ball twice, you got to get points on the board. And,
Mhm.
there was a point in the game, I think it was after the block punt in the third quarter, where, and people are always going to say, you're only saying this because of after the fact. But I'm sitting on the couch, and when they got it and it was fourth down, I was saying kick the field goal because points were at a premium. I get that sometimes, the game trends are happening, and I'm no NFL head coach, but you're looking at the game, and hindsight is 2020. At that point, I felt like even though points were a premium and you need to score a touchdown, you got to kick the field goal. The same way that Philly did it earlier when they went for it on fourth down and they got in the tush push formation and they handed it off to Saquon Barkley on an outside run, and the Saints stopped them. It's the NFL. Points are at a premium. If you have an opportunity to get points on the board, whether it's a touchdown or a field goal, you got to take them. Now, obviously, we look at like last week when the Saints and Cowboys were playing, the Cowboys were trading touchdowns for field goals. That's completely different. At this point in the game, the score was 3-0. Philly, you needed to make it 3-3 going into halftime. New Orleans, you needed to make it 6-0 at that point. I believe it would have been. So yeah, it would have been 6-0 at that point. So points are points. You know what I'm saying? I think that in itself, ultimately, that did make the difference because they lost by 3 points, and they also went for a 2 point try and they didn't get it. So
Mhm.
you're really missing 5 points in this instance because well, maybe 3 or 4 points because you wouldn't have necessarily had to go for two if you get that field goal earlier. So just the fact that they weren't able to capitalize on their missed opportunities. When you essentially got 3 turnovers, two of them, with the interception and then a fumble, and then the block punt. Also, I'm counting that as a turnover as well. The fact that you weren't able to do that when your team wins the turnover battle, that hurts. You would have liked to come out in this game and come out on top. But ultimately, what the Saints are going to have to do, and you look at the fact that they weren't able to get any explosive plays either. Rashid Shaheed, I don't think he had a single catch, and he has several targets, several shots taken down the field. Um, but it's all based on the fact that the run game, they had a few spurt plays here and there, but it's the fact that the run game couldn't consistently give you explosive plays, give you 6 to 7 yards, 5 to 6 yards to then set up your play action to where, the Eagles are rolling an extra man down in the box and now Shaheed is wide open, running down the sideline for a wide open pass. You combine all of those things, and that's what ultimately I believe is what made this be a loss for the Saints. You
Yeah,
know,
I think it's give and take. I mean, honestly, how you just said it, like with the fourth downs of these guys not going and kicking field goals because it was a field goal possession, but also even with the Saints, like you just said, they didn't capitalize off of turnovers. Philadelphia didn't capitalize off of these long sustaining drives. So to me, it
mm-hmm.
was like give and take. Whoever wins this game, what I back in my mind, that's why I say this won't be the first time, the last time they see each other, because honestly, I just think it was a give and take game, and honestly, whoever came out today, it was going to be because of just the last minute logistics of coaching. Because honestly, that's what I thought it came down to. And it was a nice play by Nick Sirianni to get Dallas Goedert open on that drag route, to get him wide open, to get
Oh,
him. What's
the reason he was wide open is because the Saints were in man coverage on 3rd and 16. Listen, I,
coaching?
I don't
Coaching.
I don't know. I don't know what goes into that. I'm not a defensive coordinator. I have not played in the NFL, but I'm just thinking on 3rd and 16, we do not need to be manned up. I'm
Exactly.
just saying. And if we do, everybody need to be bagged off. Because the reason that he was so wide open like that, they ran a mesh concept. All the receivers ran into, or the DBs ran into each other in the middle of the field, and he's wide open, butt naked, running down the sidelines, playing for the game of his life. Dallas Goedert had 10 catches for 170 yards as a tight end. He had 3 plays over 30 yards as a tight end. Like,
That made me mad because he's on my fantasy team, but he was on the bench. So I missed out. I missed out on 29 points today, but Saquon Barkley made up for it. But I missed out on 29 points from him. So
yeah,
that's
man.
all I'm saying.
So the Saints suffer their first loss. Obviously, we're in the NFL. We're talking about the NFL. So points are always at a premium. Every game is different, you know. So as much as you would have liked to see them score 40 points again, it's not necessarily going to happen every single game. Um, there's no such thing as a good loss, but I do believe that this is a loss where you're able to evaluate and say, okay, when we don't have a few pieces here and there, how do we adjust? How do we continue to have that next man up mentality and be able to step in and get the job done to be able to just win ugly ball games? You know, I think about some years ago. I think it might have been the first year after Drew Brees retired, so that was 21. Um, and the Saints were down all of their quarterbacks for some reason. They were playing at Denver, and I think Taysom Hill had to start, and they basically just ran the ball the whole game, and they won. And I don't think they scored many touchdowns, if any at all, but they won the football game. So sometimes it does take that. Whatever the formula is to get you the W, as Al Davis always said, just win, baby. Sometimes that's all you have to do. And so the Saints will go back to the drawing board now. They will face off against another division foe as they'll face off with the Atlanta Falcons next Sunday in a noon kickoff. The Saints fall there to the Philadelphia Eagles 15-12 to fall to 2-1 on this very young season. Thank you so much for watching this clip of the Fitz Take podcast. Be sure to like this video and also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also follow me and Elijah on our social media platforms. They will be linked down in the description. And remember, every episode of the Fitz Take podcast will air right here on the YouTube channel every Monday at 2 p.m. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.